Hey gang, welcome back to another video. Now I've always wanted to build a wilting flower prop, but regardless of how many times I've thought about it, I just couldn't come up with a good way to do it. Until recently when I stumbled across a video by Scot who achieved the exact effect I was trying to create. Scot was kind enough to share his build, but it still seemed a bit more technical than I was comfortable with. So I decided to try and build my own using some elements of his version. But things didn't quite go to plan. So after fighting my way through a build that just didn't want to work, I present to you Failure is Always an Option Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. So let's rip the band-aid off this thing and get into it.
In Scot's build, he uses a linear actuator and a prop controller to make some rigid wire travel up and down a small bit of tubing. This creates the look of the wilting flowers. But for my version, I thought it would be a bit easier to use a small motor like I've done on a bunch of other props in our haunt. So with that as my reference point, I got down to 3D modeling all of the parts I thought I'd need for this build, starting with the vase. I had a general idea of its shape, so I drew out its profile and then revolved it around the center axis. Then I could hollow out the vase and split it in half to make it easier to access the inner workings should something need to be repaired. I also added some alignment pins and receivers to make sure that everything stayed in place. At this point, I switched my attention over to the mechanism. Because I needed a way to push and pull the wire to give the appearance of wilting flowers, I was going to need some kind of platform to mount the wires to, and a support to both hold the wires in position, but also as a mounting point for the rubber tubing, which will act as the flower stems. And to create this movement, I figured I could use an egg-shaped cam wheel, which I designed to fit the small synchronous motors that I always use. Then I could use a closet door roller wheel and a 3-inch piece of flat stock aluminum to connect everything together. The last piece of the puzzle, or so I thought, was some kind of mount for the motor and a stabilizer for the aluminum bar. This would help keep everything in alignment and prevent derailing. And after a bunch of 3D printing, here's all my parts. I'm feeling good about this design, and the printed parts all look great and fit well together. Off camera, I screwed the motor to the motor mount and will attach the cam to the motor with a small bolt. Then I can get it glued into place inside the vase. So far so good. Still feeling confident. The next thing I wanted to do was to test the mechanism to see if it worked how I'd hoped it would. So I set the stabilizer in place, aligned the cam and the wheel, and wired up to power. Okay. Well, that's not ideal. Let's try it again, but I'll hold everything in place. Nope. That didn't work either. Thankfully, I can see where my problem is. There's too much play in the stabilizer, and it's allowing the platform and bar to get hung up as the motor spins. So I hopped back into Fusion 360 and modified my design by adding some vertical supports. This should force the aluminum bar to stay in place as it rides along the egg-shaped cam. And after a bit more 3D printing, I have the new and improved stabilizer and I can test it out. Okay, it looks like that solved my problem. I think it's safe to glue this piece in place, so let's get to it. While I waited for the glue to set up, I grabbed some 12-gauge armature wire and cut it into 6-inch long pieces. These will then go inside the 3/16-inch tubing and will act as a spine for our wilting flowers. But first I'm going to need to set them into the platform piece, which already has receiver holes. And with a bit of screen magic, I've got the wires threaded through the insert and the lid reattached, and now I'm ready to give it another test. They seem to be working. Let's add on the tubing with a bit of weight on the end to see if anything changes. Okay, it looks like the wire's getting hung up somewhere, and the wires appear to be misaligned. So my first thought is to enlarge the openings in the insert with a step-up bit. And as I think more about it, I decide that I'm going to have to reconfigure the lid to have the insert installed from the top rather than from the inside, since threading all the wires was challenging and this will make any minor adjustments much easier as they present themselves. A bit more 3D printing later, and with the new lid in hand, I can test fit everything and again see where I stand. Everything seems to be working alright, so I think it's time to glue all the wires in place on my platform. Now that all my wires are set, I can glue all of the tubing to the insert piece, making sure to point the tubing's natural curvature away from the center of the piece so that the flowers will wilt in a more natural looking way. And when the glue is set, I can give it a coat of green spray paint since these will be my flower stems. While I wait for that to dry, I'm going to do a little work on the vase to ensure that the stabilizer doesn't pop out again. So I grabbed a wood burning iron with a flat tip and will use it to melt the 3D printed parts together. With that out of the way, I could shift to adding on some artificial flowers. I found these in my local craft store and the flowers pop right off the stem with just a little encouragement. Then I can set these into the plastic tubes, and if all goes well, we'll see this prop finally work as intended. Of course this couldn't go smoothly. The tubes were difficult to get the wires into, and my plastic fusing clearly didn't work since the stabilizer once again has broken away from the walls of the vase. Not to mention that the wires still aren't retracting. Whatever confidence I had is long gone at this point, but I'm trying to keep positive. There's gotta be a solution. Let's take everything apart. Maybe there's something I'm missing. After a quick repair and a brief intermission, I put everything back together, plugged it in, and still nothing. The wires slide up just fine, but they seem to still be getting trapped inside the tubing, and there's not enough weight on the platform to pull it back down. And to make things more complicated, when the motor is met with resistance, it's designed to go in reverse. At this point, I think I have to admit temporary defeat and walk away from it. Also, I need to shave.
Now this project wasn't a complete failure, but there's definitely some things I'll need to solve before I can call it finished. What was a big win, on the other hand, was that I got to use the more mechanical side of my brain to create this entire project. So whether it worked or not, I got a chance to do something outside of my wheelhouse, and that's always a good thing. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, but most importantly, go make something.